Lesson 1-2, Powers and Exponents. The main idea of this lesson is to be able to use powers and exponents. Here's a list of the new vocabulary for this section. Factors, exponent, base, powers, squared, cubed, evaluate, standard form, and exponential form. More specifically, by the end of this lesson, you're going to be able to write exponents as products, evaluate expressions with exponents, and write expressions in exponential form. When you have two or more numbers that are multiplied together to form a product, those numbers are called factors. When the same factor is used, you can use an exponent to simplify the notation. So, for example, here we have 5 to the second power. Or another way that you can say that is 5 squared. Anything to the second power, you can say the word squared instead of to the second power. So basically what this is 5 squared is 5 times 5. And we know that 5 times 5 is 25. So all this is 3 different ways for us to be able to write something that means the same thing. We can either write 25, you can write 5 times 5, or you can write this. You can write 5 to the second power, which can be read 5 to the second power, or it can be read 5 squared. Here we have 4 to the third power. Things that are to the third power can also be called cubed. So 4 to the third power means 4 times itself 3 times. So that means 4 times 4 times 4. The last example here in this table is 2 to the fourth power. Things to the fourth power don't have another term for them. Only things to the second power and things to the third power have another term for them. Remember, second power is squared and third power is cubed. After the third power, then we just simply say to whatever power it is. There are a few other things that you need to understand about this before we can get into the examples. When we have, say, 2 to the fourth power, the 2 down here, this is known as the base. And the fourth part up here, we call this the exponent. So we have the base is the number itself, and the exponent tells us how many times we multiply the base by itself. So remember, this is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. It is not 2 times 4. That is not what this means. It's not 2 to the fourth power. It's 2 times itself 4 times. Here's our first 2 examples for today, where we need to be able to write each power as a product of the same factor. So in other words, we need to be able to write what this means. So what does 7 to the 5th power mean? Well, 7 to the 5th power, remember, it means 7 times itself 5 times. So I'm going to write 7 times 7 times 7 times 7 times 7. Let's check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 7s. Let's look at the other example. 3 to the second power. That means 3 times itself 2 times. So 3 times 3. So when we have to write each power as a product of the same factor, it just means to write it out in expanded. What does 7 to the 5th power mean? It means 7 times itself 5 times, and 3 to the second power means 3 times itself 2 times. That's the first thing that you need to be able to do for today. The second thing that we need to be able to do today is we need to be able to evaluate each expression. Evaluate's a word that we're going to see quite often through these lessons. And whenever we want to evaluate something, it's another word for being able to find the value of. So in other words, what is the value of 2 to the 5th power? Remember, 2 to the 5th power is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So that means you need to multiply 2 by itself 5 times. There's a few different ways that you can do this. The first way you can do it is with your calculator. I changed my calculator over to the scientific one, which is just here in the view pull down under scientific. So in my calculator, if I want to do 2 to the 5th power, I could either go 2 times 2, there's 2 2's, times 2, there's a third one, times 2, that's 4 2's, times 2, that's 5 2's. So we could either say that that equals 32. And that I just simply entered each one of the 2's into the calculator. There's a little simpler way to do it. Over here we have several different buttons. X to the 2nd power will take a number that you type into the calculator, like 4, and automatically square it. But that's not what we want to do. We also can cube things automatically with the X to the 3rd button. So if I wanted to cube 2, I would just put in 2 and then push the cube button. But that's also not what we want to do here. We want to know 2 to the 5th power. So I'm going to type in 2, and then I'm going to push this button, y to the x power, and I'm going to type 5. What I'm doing is I'm telling the calculator that I'm putting 2 to the 5th power, and I push the equal button, and look, we get 32. So again, in order to do that, I'm using this button right here on the calculator. So that's how you go about evaluating each of these expressions. Remember, evaluate just means to find the value of something. The last thing that we need to be able to do today is to write things in exponential form. So here we have 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, and we want to be able to write that in exponential form. So the base is going to be 3 because that's the number that's there. We need to figure out how many times do we need to multiply 3 by itself. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to count the 3's. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 4 of them. So this is going to be to the 4th power. And that's everything that you need to be able to know how to do for lesson 1-2. Write exponents as products, which is what we did here. 7 to the 5th power really means 7 times 7 times 7 times 7 times 7. We evaluated expressions, so in other words, we figured out what does 2 to the 5th power, what's the value of that, and 2 to the 5th power is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And I showed you how to use your calculator, the y to the x button, so we go 2, y to the x, 5, equals 32. The last thing that we did today was we wrote things out in exponential form. So in other words, I used this information here in order to write things using exponents. So 3 was the base because 3 is the number being multiplied, and it's to the 4th power because there's 4 3's there.